Welcome to InCabin from the creators of AutoSense. InCabin supports the global community of automotive interior specialists by providing a best-in-class event experience featuring an extensive agenda across 2 tracks, expert-led roundtables, and a full exhibition of the latest innovations. Today, we welcome back to the program Paul Zubrinich, Chief Marketing Officer of Optalert. Paul, good to see you again. Welcome back.
Good to see you, Carl. How are you going?
Good, my friend. So we talked in Phoenix, and that was a few months ago. So tell us, in the time that has passed, what are some of the latest observations that you have about the in-cabin sector for automotive?
Sure. So I have been in Optalert now for 3 months, and that's where I've been really focused on that in-cabin sector. So it might be good if I clarify a bit of my background. Prior to Optalert, I supported Lexus and Toyota and a number of German automakers with marketing and data strategy. But in these roles, if we look at the supply chain, I was very close to the brand and the end consumer, and I was downstream from the technology and the decisions being made about the technology going into the vehicle. So I was promoting production-ready innovations in these teams, in these marketing teams, but I had very little visibility. All of us had actually not super huge visibility over the innovation pipeline upstream. And the last 3 months, I've got a real inside glimpse of the automotive innovation ecosystem, and it has blown my mind. The pace of innovation is breathtaking. It's been really heartening to see that engineers and product leads that we're speaking to in the OEMs, they're becoming increasingly discerning about the technologies they put into the vehicles. And we've all either had the experience or had someone tell us about the experience where they've hired a car and then they've had all these things beeping at them and they're all confused and they're thinking, what's going on? Why is it telling me I have this or that going on? And there's been a lot of false positives for a lot of these warning systems and whatnot. And so I think everyone knows there's been some missteps in the last 5 or so years. In some OEMs have perhaps overstated the power of certain technologies, and everyone is becoming a bit more wary about trusting that a system will do what is promised. And so if I just speak to drowsiness, which is the thing I know the best, that's the area I know the best because I work alongside the world's leading experts in drowsiness, the industry dabbled in some dubious metrics. 2 that spring to mind are perk loss, which is percentage of time per minute that the eyelid is 80% closed, and KSS, which involves asking someone, how tired are you? And these resulted in erroneous systems. They eroded customer trust. And as a result, decision makers within OEMs are scrutinizing and they're digging deeper into each technology and they're asking, what is the ground truth? And how can I trust this is going to be accurate on the road? So they realize it's critical that they build an accurate system on a scientifically valid foundation. And if they don't, they will at best annoy consumers with unnecessary alerts, like I was saying before, the false positives. At worst, they're going to allow dangerous scenarios to emerge. And this is a safety issue, and this is all about reaching vision zero, and that's false negatives. And so our CTO, Simon Block, is going to talk about this at InCabin Brussels, and he's going to contrast what we see as 2 broad approaches to product development. Or I think a lot of engineering teams are very familiar with minimum viable product, the MVP approach, from the lean startup, build, measure, learn, all of those things, speed to market, rapid customer feedback. And we're contrasting that with what we are calling the scientifically valid product approach. Now, it's important to note the MVP approach emerged online with digital products. So these see regular deployments of updates on a weekly or even sometimes daily timeframes. Like when I worked with automakers on their websites, we were pushing updates on weekly deployments. And they're big, large organizations. Some really nimble, lean organizations can push it, quicker. So in automotive, this is still a sound approach for features focused on comfort and entertainment. And it's also important to note that these are constantly adapting to shifting consumer preferences. So the ground truth is simply, what do people find intuitive and enjoyable to use today? And that changes and that evolves over time, and it's always in flux and it's never fixed. Whereas this is not the case when we talk about health features in the cabin. So the physiological nature of intoxication, distraction, drowsiness, cognitive impairment, these are not evolving in the same way. These evolve over tens of thousands of years. And they're not evolving at nearly the speed as preferences toward touch screens versus physical buttons and dials. So unlike online digital products that seeded the MVP approach, vehicle models are updated far less frequently, and even over-the-air updates are constrained by the hardware and the underlying architecture that shipped with the vehicle. And for this reason, in health, far more diligence needs to be applied in the early stages to ensure scientific validity. Teams should begin by consulting domain experts in that area. If we're talking intoxication, it's psychopharmacology. If we're talking drowsiness, it's sleep doctors and medical professionals. So we consult with the domain experts in the relevant fields of medical science. We select an appropriate ground truth, and only after this should data scientists begin experimenting with models. And so this is how we arrived in Optalert at the Johns Drowsiness Scale, or JDS. Our founder, Dr. Murray Johns, devoted his career to sleep research, and it took over a decade. From 1994, it was 14 years to go from the lab to the field. And then in the 15 years since, we've clocked up 750 million drowsiness measurements. We've used these to refine the algorithm. It now computes 64 features of upper eyelid movements, and upper eyelid movements reveal the underlying neurological state of an individual. And we've tuned the JDS to specifically home in on drowsiness. So this objective neurological foundation is why it outperforms all other systems at predicting performance failures. And on that topic, speaking of JDS versus KSS, we've got an exciting announcement in the lead up to InCabin Brussels. We've consulted with 4 technical services firms in Europe. One is still underway. 3 have confirmed. They've reviewed the evidence and they've confirmed that Optalert's JDS is a compliant measure of drowsiness under the European General Safety Regulation, GSR. So all 4 operate Euro NCAP accredited testing laboratories. So this means OEMs can now request their drowsiness monitoring system be assessed against JDS as the ground truth rather than KSS. So this is massive, and I'm really confident that this development will save lives in the coming decade.
Paul, this is so fascinating. Talking about a lot of important things, scientifically backed product developments and responsible product development at that. Talking about the JDS, and I know we have talked about this in the past in prior interviews we've done. How can automakers and OEMs, you mentioned automakers and OEMs, how can automakers and OEMs use JDS then as this important ground truth? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So in Europe, there are a small number of technical services firms, or what some call homologation services, testing laboratories, or validation houses. And there's a very small number of major ones. And so 3 of these have confirmed that OEMs can request the Johns Drowsiness Scale be used as the objective ground truth to measure driver impairment. This is a game changer because the tested vehicle's drowsiness monitoring system will then be assessed against this ground truth. So for the first time ever, we will see a non-invasive test of driver drowsiness that will be used to rate driver monitoring systems. Do you understand what I mean by non-invasive?
Paul, you read my mind. That was my next question. What do you mean by non-invasive?
Okay, so currently, if a system is assessed with the KSS as ground truth, a test invigilator must ask the driver every 5 minutes how tired they are. So I'll tell you a story. It's about a close friend of mine. I won't name them, but they were a musician at the time. They were driving back from a gig and they fell asleep. They had 2 of their bandmates in the car with them who were also asleep. And it was the bumpers on the side of the freeway that woke them up. And then they snapped awake and they yelled at their 2 friends, "Wake up, talk to me, keep me awake, keep me occupied." And they intuitively knew what is effective, an effective countermeasure at prolonging wakefulness and reducing drowsiness temporarily, which is conversation. So it's what we do in our fleet. We ask, as soon as someone reaches a dangerous level of impairment, they speak to their supervisor on their phone, and that conversation, you see their JDS go down. You see them become more alert, more wakeful. Their blink rate signals that their brain is firing a lot more actively. And so getting a drowsy person to talk is one of the most effective countermeasures to reduce drowsiness. When you use KSS, you're inadvertently waking the person up and invalidating the test. You're invalidating any similarity to real-world conditions. Once we begin assessing systems with the JDS as ground truth, the driver can operate the vehicle as any regular driver would without being disturbed. So their eyelids will reveal how impaired they are, and the test will more closely simulate real-world conditions. And funnily enough, this is actually the second largest announcement we have lined up for InCabin Brussels.
You know, Paul, the data around drowsy driving, that it's just as dangerous as intoxicated driving, it's just as dangerous as distracted driving. What you're saying is right. It is absolutely a game changer. You've mentioned announcements. I feel like we don't have enough time, my friend. Other announcements that you have right now that you're able to discuss in the lead up to InCabin here in Brussels in June?
Sure. So we have a huge announcement. It's about our next production biomarker. I can't say too much yet. We have a patent application in progress. It's on the back of years of working with leading neurologists to bring something to market that will be an absolute game changer. I rarely use that word, and I do not use it lightly. It's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, and that is not hyperbole. It's massive, what we've unlocked, and it will change what the car can be and the value it can provide. So it's an extension of Optalert beyond drowsiness. So remember, I mentioned before that blepharometry and the blink profile is a window into the neurological state. Drowsiness is one element of, there are many, many elements of the neurological state. And so the technology is built on blepharometry. So it could be built into any driver monitoring system that used Optalert. And blepharometry can be used in the early detection of neurological and other health conditions. The only issue is we need a place that an individual regularly visits for at least a few minutes, and their blink profile can be recorded with a camera. So they need to spend a few minutes or even hours per week in a specific place. Can you think of such a place, Carl?
My desk right now, at home, at work, in your office, you know?
Yep. Wow. Well, I wasn't looking for that answer, but that is a correct answer. But I was going to say that the car is the ideal place for this. It involves a subject sitting. It is.
It's early for me, Paul. So yes,
I know.
In the vehicle.
In the vehicle. That's right. So it involves a subject sitting in the one place for an extended period, and they return frequently for updated readings. So what we're bringing to market will transform what the car can do in the health space. I can't wait to tell you more about it at Brussels. And also at Brussels, Simon will present a compelling outline of our scientifically valid product concept and a lot more on day 2 at InCabin Brussels in June. His talk is titled A Vision for InCabin Health Monitoring, Putting the Science Back into Data Science. It's going to be an eye-opening take on a crucial initial step in product development that too many engineering teams are still neglecting. Thanks so much, Carl, for taking the time. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, Paul, truly, truly our pleasure. Joined today by Paul Zubrinich, Chief Marketing Officer of Optalert. Want to encourage all of our AutoSense and InCabin viewers and attendees to connect with Paul on LinkedIn and to visit the Optalert website to learn more. And for more in-depth interviews like this, subscribe to our AutoSense YouTube channel. And for more information about InCabin, visit InCabin.com. That's InCabin.com. On behalf of InCabin in Detroit, I'm Carl Anthony.